unfortunately, we're becoming more and more aware of people's ignorance and insensitivity in the world today. And we're seeing wars, rumors, wars, ongoing war, and the continuous covering up of the truth. Today, my email box was flooded with all sorts of mail about this film school project reject called Innocence of the Muslims. Clyde, this must be something that you need to see, and the reason why you need to see it is because I know that this is going to be the thing that's going to kick off, that's going to spark everything, Clyde. You said that it was going to spark on 9/11, the 11-year cycle. Here it is. And you know what? I looked at it, and I said to myself, this film, this little trailer that I saw on YouTube, it was part of a psyop. I knew it was. Because the overall look of this is something akin to the God Hates Fags tract that you see at the Westboro Baptist Church when they're standing there and they're holding up signs at soldiers' funerals and all the other funerals out there. This is hate. This is hate speech. And now they're implicating that in Egypt and Libya, the protests that broke out over the last 2 days were caused by this film that sparked the ire of Muslims around the world. And the film should spark the anger of everyone because of what it appears to be. It appears to be a deliberate psyop. And most of the actors involved were unaware that they were taking part in an anti-Muslim propaganda piece. I watched it, and I can tell you now the film has been overdubbed in most parts, and much of the action is portrayed in front of a green screen. So anything can be done to manipulate this film into becoming an anti-Muslim piece, which is exactly what it is. It's very poorly done. In fact, it irritates you to watch because you can't believe that something this insipid and stupid is causing so much problem right now in the world. But it is. It's causing the problems. I don't get how something this stupid can create such hatred. And why? Because the Muslims are rebelling against something that makes them all look like a bunch of idiots? Is that wrong? I don't think they should be killed. I don't condone killing. I don't condone attacks. But you know what? You bait it, it happens. And you know who's behind this? Terry Jones is behind this. The guy, that Gainesville, Florida guy. He says that he was going to show it to his congregation. Terry Jones. You know, 9/11. What did he do? He tried to burn the Quran. And people said, "Don't do it. It's going to cause problems. Don't do it." And now what? We have this came out on 9/11. Came out on September 11th, 11 years after the fact. What, we cannot go without kicking and hitting the wasp nest again? We have to do it all over again? Why? Because we're tired of how this is going? We want a war? And then what, we're going to blame Israel for this movie? You got to be kidding me. People are actually blaming Israel for this film when you know it looks just like a bad Christian documentary piece done by a bunch of ignorant Christians. Or done by a bunch of ignorant Arabs, or somebody wants to cause problems. That's what it is. It's psyop. The reason why I know it's psyop is because you take a look at all the details, man. It doesn't all measure up. It doesn't add up. It really doesn't. Terry Jones says that, he supports the making of this film. He's talked with the creator of the film. And look, freedom of speech is freedom of speech. Don't get me wrong. You can do a film about this if you wish. But the question I have is, how is it that a film like this, or a little snippet of the film like this, wound up in the hands of Muslims, and why was it used? Why is it being used as a psychological operation? Because not only is it provoking the mindset of attack from the Muslim community or the radical Muslim groups, but it's also creating this, well, take a look at how they're doing this and the act of war which they've committed. So now it's turning Americans back into hating again. They're beginning to hate this, and they're saying something should be done. Let's go in and take them out. Is there a lack of respect towards other religious beliefs in the United States today? Because at Christmas, we find that Christians feel like they're under fire for saying Merry Christmas. And there have been many times where Jews have seen organized hate, like swastikas being spray painted on synagogues and in cemeteries. And now this film. Just one more hate-filled tool to spark the hardened hatred that's already in existence. Wouldn't it just be the sick irony of seeing and knowing that this film perhaps could have sparked World War III. On the program, I want to invite quickly Tracy Twyman to the show. She's been on the program before, but the reason why I'm inviting her on is because she's had a run-in with this type of thing before, and she also has some questions and some report that she wants to give us about the film Innocence of the Muslims. Tracy, are you there?
I'm here, Clyde. Thanks for having me on again.
You bet. I wanted you to comment about what happened to you during the time of the first problem we had here with the cartoons, the Muhammad cartoons, the strips that were released. What happened with you and the background that you had with this?
Sure. Yeah. Basically, all it was I was running a political blog with my husband, Brian Albert, at the time, my previous husband. And basically what happened was we were, this whole thing erupted in Denmark. A newspaper there had printed some cartoons featuring Mohammed, and most of them weren't even really offensive cartoons. But, people were upset that Mohammed's image was being printed at all, because according to some Muslim beliefs, you're not supposed to even have any depiction of Muhammad at all, and then there were a couple of the cartoons that were offensive. The protests that were being stirred up, and they were being stirred up by a limited number of imams who were touring the Muslim world, trying to get people involved in these bloody protests. And one of the things they were doing was totally misrepresenting what the newspaper's purpose was in printing these cartoons. They were basically putting them out there because what had happened in Denmark was that there was someone who was trying to put out a book about the story of Muhammad, and it wasn't an anti-Muslim book. It was like a children's book. And they were looking for illustrators to illustrate this book, and instead of getting, someone willing to take the job, they got all of these death threats saying, no, you're not allowed to print Muhammad's image. And so the newspaper was exploring this issue, in what I thought was a responsible way, but it ended up, stirring all of these protests. But the reason why was because these imams went around and lied about what the newspaper was doing, and they also mixed in a whole bunch of false images that they had made themselves, or someone on the other side had made these images. Mm-hmm. Someone in the Muslim community, and basically faked it. They made it look like, oh, here's all these really offensive images of Muhammad as a pig and, having sex with men and things like that. And it was all made up. They were mixing truth with lies.
Right.
And then using this to get people to participate in these violent protests.
So what we have is at first something happening, and then they go in and they embellish it or change it, and they do so in order to provoke some sort of response either from Islam or from America.
Right, and then you've got this weird policy from the United States of every time something like this happens now, they condemn people for putting the images out there, for talking about it. They're basically not defending free speech, and they're giving this false impression to people listening to the news in these Muslim countries, making them think that there's some sort of control over the media over here. Which is part of the problem. I think there's basically false information being given to members of the public in Muslim countries. And what I discovered, just basically reading a thread that was on Reddit today, is that you were asking earlier in the show, how did this whole thing get started? How did this thing that's been on, floating around basically being unseen for a year, how did this end up coming to the attention of these people in Egypt, where the protests started a few days ago? According to people in Egypt, there were news stations over there that were talking about it, and they were encouraging people, saying, it's the anniversary of 9/11, and you should go out to the embassy and protest this film that was made in America, made by an Israeli agent. And, I don't know if you've talked about this yet, but basically evidence comes out that this guy's name is made up. There's no reason to believe that he's an Israeli. Apparently, all of the actors who were in the film were given scripts that were different than what ended up being produced. Basically, they were told that, what was his name? Master George. They kept referring to this character Master George. That's what the actors were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then when they edited it, they dubbed over Master George and put in Muhammad. So these actors didn't even know what they were involved in. And so recently, they several of them came together and put out a joint statement saying, we didn't know what we were involved in, and, sorry if anyone got upset. So what's going on here, Clyde, I think it's just questionable. Why? How, who gave this person $5 million? Who is this person really who made this film? Is there actually a film at all? How did it come to the attention of the Muslim world? How did they all decide to start protesting on the anniversary of 9/11? And then even if you look at the death of the ambassador in Libya, it's very strange that basically what happened was, according to local reports, the government security personnel who were supposed to be protecting the ambassador and his people during the protest that was happening there, well, all of a sudden they decided to move him from the location he was at to a less secure location. And then, according to local reports, they pointed out to the protesters where he was and basically fingered him, said, go get him. And these are, people working for the government that we basically installed over there. So, why isn't that being explored by the media? I don't know.
This is the equivalent.
This is one. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is the equivalent of firing a few shots in the air and saying this is the Tet Offensive.